Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Eickhoff, and I serve as the Director of Alumni Operations here at John Carroll University. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for our next installment of the John Carroll University Alumni Author Series. The Author Series was launched in November of 2020 as a way to highlight those who have written books, chapters, essays, articles, poems, screenplays, and other written works within our John Carroll University community. Tonight, we are joined by three members of the JCU Alumni community for a conversation about female leadership and why now is the time for it. Before I introduce our featured author and our moderators, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. First, please use the chat feature to ask your questions, and I will curate them and ask our guest speaker at the conclusion of the program. Also, we encourage you to use the full screen option so you can more fully enjoy the presentation. And then finally, please stay muted during the duration of the program. It is now my pleasure to introduce our featured author and our moderators. First, our moderators for tonight's program are Alex Brenner and Jackie Thompson, our co-chairs for the JCU WMN Women's Mentoring and Networking Affinity Group. Alex Brenner is a 2012 graduate of John Carroll University. During her time at John Carroll, she immersed herself in academics and student life, taking on a double major in art history and psychology, and leading through such roles as president of Gamma Phi Beta sorority and our campus tour guide. After obtaining her graduate degree and spending several years working in the healthcare field, facilitating mergers and acquisitions and directing human resources functions, she's now founder and CEO of her own people operations consulting firm, Starting Gate Solutions. Alex currently resides in Sugar Falls, Ohio, with her husband, a John Carroll class of 2008 graduate, daughter, and a crazy corgi. Jacqueline Thompson is a 2001 graduate of John Carroll, graduating with a major in chemistry and a minor in biology. Her studies were focused on health and healthcare, and she was involved in the pre-health career group planning for an application to dental school post-graduation. During a time at John Carroll, she spent her free time competing in a slew of intramural sports and was a proud member of the winning co-ed basketball championship team her junior year. After John Carroll, she completed dental school and medical school on her way to oral surgery residencies and becoming a board-certified oral and maxillofacial surgeon. She currently practices in the area and through the university hospital system and is very involved with the Case Western Reserve Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery Residence Program, teaching future surgeons. Jacqueline currently resides in Beechwood. Our guest author for this evening is Rosemary Amato from the John Carroll class of 1974. Rosemary's career has spanned manufacturing, retail, and distribution industries, as well as over 20 years with Deloitte, eventually reaching the level of global managing director. For the last 4 years, she has been the CEO of Warmant Consultancy, providing services to boutique internal audit firm, as well as a large global bank in the Netherlands, and one of the largest medical device companies in the world. She is a CMA, a CISA, and a CPA inactive, and is a prior global board member of the Institute of Management Accountants, the IMA, and ISACA. Currently, she is a peer review team member for the CSB, working on the academic community to provide insights on how technology should be embedded in the programs being offered to today's students to enable them to enter the workforce more prepared to meet the expectations of their employers. Ladies, thank you so much for being with us this evening. Rosemary, especially thanks for sharing your chapter with us and talking about leadership, as well as we all need to know she is actually across the pond right now in the UK. So thanks so much for staying up late. Ladies, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you, Eric, and thank you, Rosemary. We're so happy to have you here. So we're just going to jump right in, and we're going to get started on some of the panel questions. So first, can you start off by telling us a little bit more about why you wanted to be a part of this book?
Okay, thank you, Jackie, and thank you, Eric, for the kind introduction. So that's a great opening question. So I want to talk first a little bit about what was happening during the summer of 2020. And if you remember, almost every country then was grappling with COVID-19 and the pandemic. During that time, one of the co-authors of the book, Athena Doctrine, had reached out to another co-author, Mary Jane Roy, and they shared their emotions about missing live contact with members of an organization we had all belonged to, the Professional Women's Network in Amsterdam. The Netherlands was in quarantine for 3 months. No one was going to the office. All the trains had almost completely stopped running. All you could do was go to your local grocery store. The wine stores were open, so that was good. But they were expressing, we had all these great live relationships with the PWN people. What can we do now? Pima had also just published a collaborative book about creating workspaces. So Mary Jo thought maybe it was a good time to invite PWN members to contribute to a book about female leadership. Mary Jane reached out to the network. I was one of the 28 people that responded. And we all agreed that maybe it was time to take action to get the topic of female leadership off the table, into the workplace and various communities. So why not write a book? And what a better time than a pandemic. In my personal situation too, I had been working at a bank during that time. That role ended. And I didn't know whether I would be getting another job or not. So I decided to get involved, not only to be a co-author, but also to be part of the whole planning on how the book was going to be written.
Well, I think, yes, you're very right. We can all remember 2 years ago, and we're happy to have that behind us. So why do you feel now is an why do you feel that now is an appropriate time to focus on female leadership?
I don't know if you could ever really define an appropriate time to focus on female leadership, but all I can say is that during the pandemic, and especially now as we recover from it, serious questions have been asked. You've probably seen this in the media about where people want to work, why women want to work, where we want to work, how we want to work, and the kind of leadership that is needed for the future. We know that pre-pandemic, the world of work and leadership was dominated by men, with some 80% of leadership positions held by men. In 1987, and I'm going to share a screen with you, I was working for a large retailer in the United States, shoe retailer, and I love shoes. And one of my responsibilities was selecting the vendor that we were going to be working with to install a point of sale system. I was able to visit Tokyo, go to Japan, be part of that process. And from the picture you're seeing, very few women were part of the Fujitsu executive tour. And I never thought about it back then. I thought about it later, especially now, as there's been so much activity about what is happening in the world with male and female traits in the workplace. It was just normal. When I moved to the Netherlands in 1999, so I've been living overseas about 23 years now, I was among a very small group of women working in risk advisory at a Big Four. I became a director in 2003, becoming the first woman promoted to this role in this business unit. But it took a full another 3 years before another woman got promoted. We know now that many countries In the US, many states are putting in requirements to have quotas for women on boards. I'm not going to comment on that now, but it does show female leadership is getting more and more attention. It's getting more important. And many people don't really understand what it means to be a female leader. So as we were working on the book, we wanted to make sure we created a focus that could be used to educate people on female leadership. So the stories that got incorporated are meant to inspire leaders, individuals, and organizations to act differently in a world where people aspire to thrive while being authentic. And as the title of the book says, the future is now.
Wow, I'm listening to you say that. I can relate very much. My field of surgery is very, very male dominated, and those numbers are very similar to mine. So I definitely can relate to that. So next question, tell us about the book and the 28 women who participated in writing the essays.
Well, the first thing I want to say is it was a journey, but it wasn't 28 women. It ended up being 24 women and 4 men. Men are also part of our PWN organization, and we were surprised to hear that they also wanted to participate. They wanted their voices heard because there are allies, some are our mentors, and they believe that men also has a role to play in this discussion. In total, we had 16 different nationalities. We had different age groups represented, people that had different growing up experiences, different education experiences, different work experiences, different family experiences. Every single person was willing to participate and share their stories, along with a call to action. And when you read the individual stories, you'll see that some of the group really exposed their personal lives and feelings. I hope that one of the upcoming questions deals with the calls to action, because we created calls to action for every essay. But let me first describe what went into creating the book. So this was during the pandemic. We're not seeing each other because, travel was stay home, don't go to anybody's houses. So we spent a considerable time on Zoom. We tried to come up with a format for a book. How do you get 28 people to collaborate? Would it be something you have to read in its entirety? How do we share our stories? What do we include? What do we not include? We ended up determining that each author would write something that was important to them. So nobody was assigned a topic. It was written from our hearts. We ended up with 28 individual essays. The essays range in size from 4 to 7 pages, so it's very easy reading. You can pick up an essay, read it, stop, or continue with another essay, reflect, come back, and pick up the book at a later time. Each essay captures a personal perspective, experience, knowledge, or research of the writer. There is also a bio on each author preceding their essay. Until I read the book from cover to cover, I didn't even realize how impressive these authors are. We have one of the first solution consultants hired at LinkedIn. We also have a multilingual international commercial lawyer who grew up in Germany. The director in the global transportation and logistics team at a large bank. A Black African woman who speaks 5 languages and has had a career of 20 years in the IT industry. A data scientist, the former president of PWN, Amsterdam, a woman who describes herself as a real-life Aztec shaman. And this is also probably going to be another story one of these days. A data scientist, the data scientist, a partner at one of the big four, one of the first women stock traders in the US, a clinical psychologist who grew up in Colombia, but received her PhD in Barcelona, a French national, a woman who started coding at 16, moved from India to Germany and received her master's in software technology at the age of 21, a corporate advisor who started her career as a nurse and was a military nursing officer in the Canadian Armed Forces, a certified coach who coaches C-level executives at Fortune 500 companies. And I can just keep going on and on describing these co-authors. Just amazing men and women.
Wow, that is very amazing. I think that is so impactful. And I love that there are some men in there too, because I believe that is very important for women as well. The format of the book is very interesting, with different essays grouped into different categories. Can you elaborate a little bit on why these categories were selected?
Thank you for that question, Jackie. As I mentioned earlier, we were struggling to find an appropriate format for the book. With all these discussions going on about creating the book and writing content, let alone how do we put it together, we also had to do everything ourselves. The writing, the editing, the designing the cover, finding someone to write the foreword, figuring out how to publish it, price it, promote it, researching legal structures, eventually forming the Ready for Female Leadership, RFFL Foundation, that I'll tell you a little bit more about later. All the proceeds after costs go to a charity supporting young women in developing their leadership skills. So as we started reading and editing each of the initial essays, and I was part of the editing team, we saw a pattern in the topics that the individuals selected. It reminded us of the pillars that the PWN organization had established to support their activities and structure their programs. So we decided to use those pillars and create icons that we can then flag with the articles to make it easy for the readers to read. Each essay is tagged, and we show the tags so that you can, say, just read a grouping of topics. So for example, we have 7 pillars. We have emotional intelligence, career development, data tech intelligence, financial intelligence, men as allies, mentoring, and networking. When you go to an essay in the book, you will see the icon at the top right-hand corner. If you look at my essay, number 13, and I don't think it's an unlucky number, but a positive number, I've got 2 icons, financial intelligence and data tech intelligence. So people that are focused on, say, mentoring can just read the essays on mentoring. So it gives them a way to navigate. So we thought that was a pretty a creative way of doing that.
Yeah, I love that too. And we're just going to jump into, let's talk a little bit more about your essay. Can you go into a little bit more detail about it? I believe it's called Facts, Memories, Plans, Just Data. Love to hear what you have to say.
Okay, so this is my story, and I'll love to tell you about it now. And I started off with a story about one of my very first bosses when I started working after graduation from Carroll in Cleveland, Ohio. He continually wanted to remind me that everything is not black or white. You have to learn what your gray area is. Over the years, that learning led me to stand up for things I strongly believed in. I had to learn to realize when my gray area needed to be broadened and that I should back up, pause, rethink. I learned that lesson the hard way. And those stories could be another book on its own. But I became a facts person. I think that when I started reading at an early age, growing up in Cleveland, the Harvey Rice School had a summer reading program. Every summer we would read. My family was from the what's so-called blue-collar environment. The only vacations we ever took were when we went in our car to visit our relatives or to go see a historical site. My essay goes into my background as a second-generation immigrant. Both my grandparents, one set came from Italy, one set came from Hungary. So my mother and father were first-born generation. And I was the first person in the family to go to college. And I picked John Carroll. I wanted my essay to be about data and facts, because you have to be data literate in the digital world today. Without data, and we know that a lot of times there is so much bad data out there, we really need to understand it. So as I was developing my essay, I really realized that my belief in data came from what I experienced in my home environment, as well as in school, in my jobs, in my personal relationships, and in my business relationships. When I had good data, I found out that I made good decisions. When I had bad data, I didn't. So I saw a pattern there. I found this quote after I had finished my essay. It's from Edward Deming. Without data, you're just another person with an opinion. So we know in the internet age that we're all bombarded with types of data. How much of it is it real? How much of it is it fake? Anyone can create a visualization today that will show you what they want you to believe. You have to be data literate to interpret things you are being told. I did find a quote that I incorporated into my essay. It's from Dan Brown, the author of the Da Vinci Code, one of my favorite books. And he says, and I'm going to read this to you, "I love the gray area between right and wrong. It is where the actions of conflict or cooperation take place. It is here that our world of emotion can be uncovered. The gray areas of life allow us to choose sides and form alliances. It is here where we can become enemies of our opposers. So much of human interaction is lived in the gray areas." And it really spoke to me. So my understanding of this quote is you always have to ask the question, why? And that led into my call to action for my readers on what does why mean. So becoming data intelligent by understanding the need for data in your life and not just in your business life, you have to get the facts, you have to do your research, you have to broaden your gray area. And while broadening your gray area, ask the question, why? Why am I concerned? Should I dig deeper into the data being presented to me? I did learn to broaden my gray area as I developed data literacy as I developed data literacy techniques that opened up more opportunities for me. I had retired in 2018 as I reached the Dutch Social Security age, and my contract was canceled. But I wasn't ready to retire then. I looked at the data, I looked at the facts surrounding me. and I realized I could find other opportunities. I was able to recognize those opportunities when they presented to me, jump in, and ended up with exciting work for another 4 years. And one of those opportunities was to be a co-author of Ready for Female Leadership, The Future Is Now.
Wow, thank you. I love that quote by Dan Brown, and I love his books too. So I think I can relate very much to the gray areas. So that's a really great idea to bring visibility to. I'm going to follow up on your call to action. Each essay ends with a call to action. So can you tell us a little bit more about these?
Okay, so you just heard my call to action. I'll share 3 other ones with you, but let me give you some background first on why we had the calls to action. So as we were developing the essays, we wanted to have some consistency, but we knew all the authors had their unique messages. So how do you put 28 different things together? We ended up then making the decision that if everyone ended their story with a specific call to action, no matter what their story was about, there would be a summary that would allow the readers to do something actionable. So the calls to action are something you can read even separately from the essay. You can just go read the calls to actions. You can read them again and again and see if it is something you are doing or something you may want to do. One author left the reader with this saying: step outside your comfort zone. What would you like to try out but have not dared to do so far? Which doors are you keeping closed out of fear? Don't focus on your failures or something that could go wrong. See it as a learning opportunity. Another co-author focused on financial intelligence. So her call to action was develop financial intelligence and make it an integral part of your life. Like every skill, it requires practice. Be ready to stand for your financial independence. And then a third author was talking about DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. In order to achieve an inclusive culture, have bold conversations, stay in the conversation, work through it, acknowledge to the other person that it is uncomfortable, and explore the why and how of this together. We are all responsible to show up and behave in a way that respects values and includes peoples. So the call to action, just like the icons were, is another way to be able to read and listen to the messages.
That's great. That's great. So I'm going to turn the second half of the panel over to Alex.
Thank you so much. Thank you again, Rosemary, for being here. You look fabulous for 2 a.m. on your time. I don't think I look half as good.
Thanks, Alex. And thank you, Jackie, for moderating the first part of this session.
Thank you,
Always
Jackie.
my pleasure.
Well, we had brought up a lot of your involvement, obviously, in being a John Carroll alum, but speaking to the community at large for JCU, what can the JCU community learn specifically from reading your book?
I'll start with a simple sentence. I hope a lot. Even though I am one of the co-authors and I was an editor of many of the essays, I have gone back and read the book not once from cover to cover, not twice, but 3 times already. And each time I find another tidbit that gives me that aha moment and makes me think. Before I moved to Europe, I was very US centric. I had only traveled out of the country 4 times. Once to Canada with my family to see Niagara Falls, once to the Bahamas on a 3-day cruise, once to Tijuana when I was in San Diego, and we had to go across the border just to say we were in Tijuana. And once to Germany for a ski trip when some of my friends were stationed in the military over there. But living in Europe, I've had projects in almost every European country as well as China. I worked with a team in India. I've met people from different backgrounds. I've been exposed to different cultures, and it really opened up my mind. So a book such as Ready for Female Leadership brings different perspectives on the differences of people together into one place. So I believe the John Carroll community can learn from listening to the various authors on what they each experienced, because they're all personal stories, and look at how that relates to the diverse population that is at Carroll now. John Carroll's woman leadership team, you may want to leverage the information to open up dialogue sessions for the faculty, for the students, various stakeholders. So I think the materials can be used in a lot of different ways. One thing, most of the authors are not native English speakers. So some of the phrasing in the writing may be unusual to most of the way Americans read and look at words on paper. But by reading their stories and the way they communicate it, you'll get a different perspective on what they feel female leadership is about. One of the things we are also doing now with the organization is exploring how feminine qualities work with masculine qualities. Both need to work together, and the sexes need to understand how to embrace women embracing their masculine, men embracing their feminine. And our foundation is a step forward to help achieving this goal in the business world, which includes the world of academia.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's so true. And it really speaks to the heart of the Jesuit teachings too, right? One of the things I took away from John Carroll is having a much more open, worldly perspective and way of thinking. So, well, I love to hear that. I think that's fabulous that you had such a diverse panel of folks to be able to write for the book.
Yeah, and remember that thought, Alex, because later on, I'm going to be telling you something about what I thought I took away from John Carroll. And I think it's going to be very similar to what you just said.
That's great. Well, I don't want to jump ahead. Let's go back, actually. So let's go back to what you had said originally. You were talking a lot about our FFLL Foundation. What are the plans now for that? Can you speak to that and what's ahead?
Sure. The foundation is really where we go next. We've got a book out there. It's been published. It's been selling. We're actually making money now. And one of the things the co-authors unanimously agreed upon is that we will not take any money from the profits. After the costs, everything goes to a charity supporting young women in developing their leadership skills. The current charity we selected is the Dutch chapter of Feminenza. You can look them up on the internet. They have North American chapters as well as various countries. They are a nonprofit in the Netherlands. They've been there since 2001. And their aim is to promote the new understanding between the genders and to establish an association based on respect and honor in the exchange that occurs between the natures of the masculine and feminine genders, coming from deeper insight and wisdoms promoting the best in each. So we wanted to share our story with the book. That included our knowledge and expertise that we had gained through our experiences through over the years. But we want to help the readers and those coming in contact with the book and now with the foundation to execute the calls to action. And by participating with other nonprofit groups, there is a way to do that. The mission and purpose for our foundation, RFFL, is to offer a platform to promote and support gender balance and the development of female leadership qualities in organizations. Our work includes then the publishing of this book, maybe more in the future, organizing, facilitating events, workshops, talks, and other related activities. We believe that the world needs and is ready for female leadership. Despite the research showing the benefits of a balance of feminine and masculine leadership qualities, action is still required to get it off the table. I mentioned this at the beginning. It has to actually get embedded in our workplaces and communities, and we all must change and adjust at work. And to be an effective leader, whether you are a man or a woman, you have to balance these feminine qualities with masculine qualities. So we're also leveraging the Athena Doctrine. This book was one of the best sellers, I think originally published in 2013. I'm not sure if you've read it yet. It's called The Athena Doctrine, How Women and the Men Who Think Like Them Will Rule the Future. It's a book by John Gerzamo and Michael D. Antonio. And in the book, they discuss how these traits really affect the way you lead. And I want to just show you a few slides right now of some of the things that we have been doing. So Break the Bias was out a few months ago. So we made sure we all got our picture taken with the famous crossed arms and the book. We publicized that. Some of the co-authors were able to present at different conferences. We've been capturing quotes from people. Sonia is the past president of the PWN, and her goal is that she would love to see her Generation Alpha daughter step into the world of work with nothing to hold her back from living her life. When Eric gave me the moderators' names today, he had put down Alex, and he put down Jackie, spelled as Jacci. So my first thought was, oh, it's a man, and Jackie spelled that way maybe is a foreign alumni. You know, then I found out they're both women. So that is some of my own personal perspective, which I think a lot of people still have on, you see a name and you automatically go to the male or to the female or to the not from your country, but from another country. And that's what we have to, you know, really, I don't want to say the word stop. It should just never be there in a person. We should just forget all that, which you don't forget when you grow up that way, but we have to figure out how it becomes transparent. And as I had said before, we know women outperform in leadership roles. We have seen that. There are statistics on it. So some of the things we are doing, we were working with the Tommy PVH, the owners of Tommy Hilfiger in Amsterdam, because their DEI community wanted to learn more about our experiences. And again, the Athena Doctrine, that their research, which was over 64,000 people from 13 countries, 2/3 of the people feel the world would be a better place if men thought more like women. That is an amazing fact. That is real data. And their conclusions is that the data shows that the world is ready to see feminine qualities in leadership. So we're on our way. I think we have a lot more to do.
Yes, we certainly do. Well, it sounds like there's some wonderful work being done and driven by the mission there. So thank you so much for sharing all of that, as well as that last really fascinating fact. And let's pivot then from the mission work that you're doing with the foundation to more of your personal mission and vision. Can you talk a little bit in detail? You had talked early on about a potential retirement, and then you changed gears. What are your plans as you enter a new evolution of your life? Are you planning for retirement anytime soon, or what are things looking like for you over the coming years?
Well, if you remember the very first slide when Eric introduced me, I'm from the class of 1974. We will have our 50th reunion in 2 years. So that means I'm 70 years old right now. Retirement is a dirty word to a lot of people. And 4 years ago, at 66, it was a very bad word for me. But I've been able to have great adventures these past 4 years. I was lucky. My first adventure, as I call it, was the first 25 years of my business career. I worked in a variety of accounting roles in manufacturing and retail and distribution, all in the United States. I was a JCU accounting major, and that was my career. I then was able to spend the next 21 years in consulting roles. I moved from traditional accounting to IT auditing, to risk consulting, to data management, and to project management. And most of that time, I was in Europe. My third adventure then were the last 4 years when I became an entrepreneur. I was able to work for a variety of clients and use all my past experiences to help them achieve their business goals. So now that I myself am ready for retirement, it is my decision this time. I'm starting a fourth adventure, and I'm going to be focusing on learning Italian, organizing my swatch collection, my albums, vinyl, learning more about wine, which I love to drink, traveling. Right now, my partner and I, he's British. We live between a suburb of London, Amsterdam, and Malta. And there's a host of other things that I've always done, but now I'm going to have more time to enjoy it. And for sure, I'll continue working with the RFFL Foundation and a lot of the other nonprofit organizations that I'm involved with.
That's wonderful. I mean, your work alone is admirable, but your retirement plan is pretty spectacular. So I'm very jealous.
Well, 70 is the new 50. So
yeah, hey, absolutely.
Have time to do everything. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, I'm happy for you. And it sounds like a wonderful thing to look forward to. Well, let's reflect back on your graduation year. So you're a graduate of 1974, as you said. Tell us a little bit about why you decided to choose John Carroll when you were looking for college, especially being a first-generation college attendee. Tell us your decision process.
Sure. Well, one of the first reasons that I even considered John Carroll was that it had gone co-ed 3 years before. So going in as a freshman, I would have a whole senior class of men because there were no women in the senior class. But I had come out of an all-girls Catholic school, Beaumont, in Cleveland Heights, Ohio, and I wanted a co-ed experience. I then was also looking for a school that had a computer science program. I was interested in computer science. I loved chemistry. I had taken advanced chemistry in school, and computer science back then, you know, all we had was Fortran, but it was the beginning. But I fell in love with the campus. When I visited it, it felt at home. I recognized I needed a small school, as I really am an introvert by all the Myers-Briggs stuff. People don't believe that. I've learned how to become an extrovert. But I realized even back then, I never would have survived in a large school with thousands of students. So when it came to decision time, money was definitely an issue. I was lucky I got scholarships at a few places. So then I had the choice to make of, do I stay home and commute, which meant I'd buy a car, or there was another school, similar institution in Western New York that I also loved, but it would be no car. I'd be there, wouldn't be able to get home that much. And the car is really what made my decision on why I chose Carroll. I was ended up being a commuter, driving 4 miles back and forth to school daily. But it worked out. I had some great perks because being a freshman woman, when there weren't that many women at Carroll on campus with their own car, it was great. So that's why I chose John Carroll.
I love it. Thank you for sharing all that. And you had brought up, that you obviously had some great John Carroll experiences that ultimately impacted your career. Can you share what some of those were?
Sure. I think the one thing I learned from John Carroll was how the Jesuits look at learning. And that's something that you don't get a lot of other places. The Jesuit tradition of values. This is from the Carroll website right now. As a Jesuit Catholic university, John Carroll inspires individuals to excel in learning, leadership, and service in the region and the world. That focus on learning while you're in school, continuous learning afterwards, the concept of servant leadership. It made me realize that no matter what you do with your career, you can help others. While at Carroll, I was working at Shaker Medical Center Hospital. I was participating. I was in student council 1 year. I was participating in things. When I left school, then it was junior achievement, Habitat for Humanity, joined the IMA, got involved with ISACA. I volunteered in my parish. I used to play the organ and guitar at masses. When I lived in Charlotte, we had a very active Catholic singles organization, and I handled the newsletters and recruiting members. So I always learned that you give back. Carroll made me aware that we live in the world, and when you live in it, it's not just you. You have to give back and serve others. The Jesuits call it the call to human excellence. It develops the whole person from intellect and imagination to emotions and intelligence, and approaches the academic subjects holistically, exploring the connections among facts. There's my favorite word again, facts, questions, insights, conclusions, problems, and solutions. So I received a liberal arts education at JCU, as well as my technical education in business and accounting. And you may be wondering how I got into business accounting when I was looking for computer science. Well, after 1 semester of Fortran, when I had to do coding for differential equations, which I didn't even know what a differential equation was because my math course in that wasn't going to be the following semester, I gave up computer science and switched to accounting. So I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for the Jesuit tradition in how they approach learning. And if I can give you a quote from Creighton University, which is also another Jesuit school. My nephew graduated from there 5 years ago with a business degree and a major of accounting. So he's following his aunt. I couldn't convince him to go to John Carroll because he was living in Missouri. But Creighton says the Jesuit education at Creighton University shapes the whole person: emotional, spiritual, intellectual, physical, social. Whatever students do, they do it with justice. And I thought that was a nice way of really expressing the learnings that we got at school. So my Carroll experience impacted my career. I was shaped as a whole person, and those I've worked with over the years, my peers, my managers, my staff, they recognized that at me, and I ended up with lots of opportunities.
I think that's fabulous to hear you say that, and to take it away and have it make such a profound impact on who you've become. And I think, even why we're all here tonight, in the spirit of service and learning, we're here to open our eyes and ears to hear new stories and meet new people and give back to the community of John Carroll. So thank you so much, Rosemary. And to round out the end of this conversation, what would you say, what is the one message, or I'll use your term, call to action, that you want to give to women, especially in the John Carroll community? What would that one thing be?
It's it is my call to action in my essay. Become data literate, broaden your gray area. But when you believe in something, don't compromise, stick to your beliefs. With data, you can achieve anything. It took me 47 years, but I was able to gather data to show a potential employer that my past experience and knowledge would enable me to take a role in Amsterdam at the age of 47 for a product that I didn't know anything about, but it enabled me to fulfill my lifetime dream of moving to Europe and being able to travel and see the world. So it's look at all the calls to action, see which one speaks to you, and maybe you come up with your own call to action. So that's the message to the JCU community.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. And I love that picture. And we're going to hand it back over to Eric.
And that was my freshman year ID.
That is absolutely amazing to see. So thank you all so much. Rosemary, thank you so much for sharing your time, your expertise, your thoughts on leadership and why it's important, female leadership and why it's important now. Jackie and Alex, we're super thrilled to have you relaunching the WMN program for our alumni. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. One question I do have personally, and I ask this for every author: if someone wanted to go ahead and get the book, what is the best way to make that happen?
And I completely forgot to mention that. It is being sold on Amazon. So you can just go into Amazon, search for Ready for Female Leadership. The Future is Now. I think the US pricing is somewhere around $25, I think, somewhere around that. But definitely go to Amazon, pick it up. We'd love it because, awesome. As I mentioned, the profits are going to our foundation for donation to nonprofits.
What a great cause, and what a great way to raise money for that important, for developing young women into becoming the next generation of leaders, something our world desperately needs. One other question. Thank you for sharing your email. That's wonderful too. Every time we've done a author series, I always learn a little bit about the writing process. Was there one thing that maybe surprised you while you were writing your chapter of the book?
It's how to get all of these thoughts that are in your head into something concise. I think every single one of our co-authors said the same thing. They started, they stopped, they changed. It was an evolution process because it's got them thinking about different things. And even though they might have had an outline to start with, it's how do you bring it together? So rewrite after rewrite after rewrite. And I think that's the one thing we all learned. It's not something that just flows.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a ton of sense. So again, thank you so much for being with us this evening and staying up incredibly late.
That's okay. I had enough coffee this afternoon.
I know the feeling. So I again, thank you so much to all three of you. Rosemary, we look forward to seeing you at your reunion in a couple of years.
I'll be there for sure. I'm on the reunion committee.
That is wonderful.
So.
Great. Well, before we all say goodnight, I want to let you all know about a few other programs that are being offered by John Carroll. For those who live here in Cleveland, Ohio, please join us for two important conversations. The first is entitled Religion After Roe, which will feature three scholars from different religious traditions. They will discuss what this recent Supreme Court decision related to Roe v. Wade and abortion. The program is on Monday, September 19th at 7 p.m. And is hosted by the Department of Theology and Religious Studies. Our second program is Lessons on the Armenian Genocide, featuring Pulitzer Prize recipient Peter Balakian, and hosted by the JCU Peace, Justice, and Human Rights Program and the Armenian Cultural Garden. It will take place on Thursday, September 22nd at 7 p.m. Both programs will be hosted in person in the Donahue Auditorium in the Dolan Center for Science and Technology. Next week, all members of the John Carroll community are welcome to join us for Homecoming and Family Weekend. The festivities begin on Thursday, this September 22nd, as the Office of Alumni Relations hosts its Graduates of the Last Decade Homecoming Happy Hour at High and Dry in Tremont. On Saturday, September 24th, all are welcome at the Homecoming and Family Weekend Block Party taking place on South Belvoir Boulevard in front of the Short Family Tennis Complex from 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. There will be plenty of activities for everyone to enjoy, along with a cash bar and food trucks. The weekend concludes with our traditional Mass and brunch on the morning of Sunday, September 25th. Following Homecoming, John Carroll hits the road for its first in a series of regional receptions. We will be in Buffalo, Rochester, and Erie the week of September 26th. Later this fall, we'll be in Chicago, Pittsburgh, and Columbus. And then finally, be on the lookout for JCU WMN's Guest Speaker Series relaunch with Roseanne Dusher, founder and CEO of All Forward, an event to listen, learn, mingle, and network. All Forward LLC curates unique and transformative outdoor experiences along the Ohio and Erie Canal towpath that connect and move people, organizations, and the local community forward. They offer customized and immersive experiences that enable and inspire participants to stretch themselves, try new adventures, reconnect, and build their skills, trust, and engagement with impact. For more information about all of our programs, please visit jcu.edu/alumni. Finally, please consider a charitable gift to John Carroll in support of our students, our faculty, and our entire campus community. If you've already made a gift this year, thank you for your generosity. And if you have not, please join me in supporting John Carroll so that we can continue to deliver an outstanding education for our current and future Blue Streaks. You can make a gift by donating at jcu.edu/give. Thank you again for being with us. Take care, be well, onward on, and have a wonderful evening.